are crew members to a ship called the Envisioneer. They got trapped on an island in search of an ancient treasure. The main part of our navigational map went missing. We have 4 current suspects. Today you will hear the evidence collected against Dr. Smart and Shipwright now. Last Monday there was a shipwreck. Some passengers got injured.
Today we are going to tell you about the lungs and how to apply splits.
First up are Leah and Emmy talking about the lungs.
There were people on a ship that started dealing with lung problems. Pneumothorax is the disease. The treatment is the surgery or a tube. The surgery takes longer to heal. In my opinion, the tube is better because it takes less time to heal and it brings less pain to your body.
I'm going to tell you why we talked about the lungs. Because the quest said that someone had lung problems, and I'm going to tell you what the blood does when it goes inside the lungs. It collects oxygen and then goes back into the heart and through the body. Here are the lung models we made. As you can see, when you pull the diaphragm, all the oxygen goes into the lungs. Emmy will tell you more about that.
When you pull on the diaphragm, it brings the air into the lungs and out.
Now, Ethan, Piper, and Elma will tell you about how to apply splits.
What you see here is a doctor applying a neck split to his patient.
When you apply a neck split, you have to make sure that it's loose enough so that the patient can breathe, but tight enough so that the patient cannot move his head.
The doctor is also applying gauze wrap around the neck split.
When you apply gauze wrap, you have to make sure that it's tight enough so the neck split does not come undone. Next, we're going to show you how to apply an ankle split.
The doctor is now going to apply an ankle split to his patient.
When you apply an ankle split, you have to make sure that the ankle split is tight enough so the patient's ankle doesn't move. If the patient's ankle is able to move, then it could lead to discomfort and further damage.
The doctor is now also applying gauze wrap around the ankle split.
The gauze wrap will make sure that the ankle split doesn't come off. That is how you apply an ankle split and a neck split.
We had to build the M-Bots from scratch. We had to use nuts and screws to attach motors, wheels, and sensors. We also had to make sure that all of the cables and wires were connected properly.
We made the M-Bot so we can find all the missing crewmates. The 2 crewmates we found were Sydney and Nev. That's when Sydney said Nev kidnapped me, so it was a lot of help. I don't think we would be able to do it without the M-Bot.
For the M-Bots, we programmed them to do simple commands like go forward, make sound, or light up. After, we started to steer them around and made mazes for them to navigate through. Other activities included seeing how far they could go in 2 seconds at medium speed. In the end, we had to save 2 people on an inaccessible part of the island for humans. Programming the M-Bots was very fun and entertaining.
We built a bridge for the M-Bots to go over. We could only use paper clips and straws. We were not successful the first time. We had to keep restarting 5 times.
We built the truss bridge so that the M-Bot and others on the island could safely get to another island. They wanted to get to that island because there was fresh fruit there in a safe area.
The heart is a phenomenal organ. If anything bad happens, to it, it most likely died. When we dissected the cow heart, it still had the aorta, the vena cava, and some more veins. The heart was already cut open, so we had a full view. We cut it open because Dr. Smart from the medicine part of the case told us to do it because he wants us to understand his treatment. And that's something I learned about the heart for the medicine part of the CSI. I would be yapping on and on about the cardiovascular system right now, but that's Aaron's job.
The heart and the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system is in your body and is what pumps blood and oxygen through yourself. The heart is what starts that. First, the vena cava lets the blood in through a vein and puts it into the right atrium. Then it goes to the right ventricle, which is pumped to the lungs by way of the pulmonary artery. From there, it goes to the left atrium to the right ventricle. Then the aorta takes the rich blood back through your body through arteries. Then arteries branch into veins. Then the process repeats. Without your heart, your whole body wouldn't work. Heart attacks. If your blood flows get clogged, you could get a heart attack. The reason is that if your heart doesn't get blood, it won't function. My point is that the heart is an important organ that delivers what your body needs to survive.
In our case, first mate Sydney Young said that shipwright Neff kidnapped her. While she was walking, she was bitten by a snake. We had to figure out the type of snake for the correct antivenom. Using the information she and Dr. Smart stated, we figured out it was the Malayan pit viper, which has hemotoxic venom. Dr. Smart earlier, when Sydney said that Neff kidnapped her, said that she is just delusional. Therefore, Dr. Smart was lying and working with Neff. This is because hemotoxic venom affects your blood and not your brain.
There were blood drops on the floor of the crime scene, which led us to our 4 suspects. Sydney Young, the captain's first mate, Dr. Smart, the physician, Robert Neff, the shipwright, and Howard Potter, the navigator. Young had a wound on her shin, Neff had a cut on his head, and Potter had a cut below his knee and claimed it wasn't his blood. Dr. Smart also had a cut on his hand, all of which could have been the wounds that spilled the blood at the crime scene. Our 3 measurements to draw blood from were 12 inches, 30 inches, and 66 inches. We decided that Neff's wound's blood would drop from 66 inches. Young's wound would drop blood from around 12 inches. Both Potter and Dr. Smart's wounds would drop blood from 30 inches. Then we just had to drop the blood.
I will be talking about blood drops. We measured different heights and dropped blood from those heights. We dropped blood from 12, 30, and 66 inches. To determine who committed the crime, we dropped blood from different heights for the different cuts. Because Neff had a cut on his head, we dropped blood from 66 inches on a paper to see how big or small the drop would be. Because Smart had a cut on his hand and Potter had a cut on his knee, we dropped blood from 30 inches. Since Young had a cut on her shin, we dropped blood from 12 inches.
We picked the best 3 blood droplets from each height and measured their width. The blood droplets from 12 inches measured to an average of 1.2 centimeters. The blood droplets from 30 inches measured to an average of 1.5 centimeters. The blood droplets from 66 inches measured to an average of 1.76 centimeters. Now, it's time to find out whose wound dropped the blood at the crime scene.
After putting the average width of the blood drops from 12 inches, 30 inches, and 66 inches, we then compared the size of the average blood drops to the blood drops at the crime scene. We concluded that the blood drop was from 30 inches. So, Smart, Potter, or both are guilty.
At the crime scene, there was a mystery powder, and we had to figure out what it was. We compared the mystery powder to known powders: sugar, cornstarch, baking soda, and cream of tartar. We tested their reactions to water, vinegar, and iodine, and figured out that the mystery powder was cornstarch.
This information turned out to be very important. Cornstarch can be used to treat skin problems like sunburns. In fact, Dr. Smart made sunburn aloe out of cornstarch for Neff right before the storm.
Moving on from mystery powder, let's talk about fingerprints. First, we had to learn how to dust our fingerprints.
We used glue on our fingers to make sure we really got a good print. We then lightly brushed cocoa powder over it so the fingerprint would be revealed. Then, we dusted cut footprints.
Finally, we looked at the actual print found at the crime scene and discovered that it belonged to Dr. Smart.
Did you guys have fun this week?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you guys surprised that Dr. Smart and Neff were guilty?
A little about Neff, but Smart kind of knew from the start.
Yeah, same.
I was a bit shocked from Neff, but Dr. Smart I kind of knew.
I agree.